Within 3 is the industry standard virtual engagement platform for pharmaceutical and medical device teams. Meaningful engagement, more effective discussions, faster decisions. Within 3.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the brand new episode of Next Talks. And today we have a very special guest who is actually in retirement. So we have Lode Dewulf. Hi, Lode. How are you?
Hello, Dario. Very, very nice to see you again, and Happy New Year to you and everybody who's watching.
Thank you very much. I already said very special guest because maybe even some of you already know Lode was the first ever chief patient officer that time at UCB, and I believe he is really one of the pioneers when it comes to patient engagement and patient experience. So really pleased to have Lode today in this very interesting chat which we prepared for the audience. So Lode, let's start with the first question, and this is seems obviously that you're a pure man of action, right? But how to find this motivation to return back from work from sabbatical like you did in the past?
Well, good, very nice question, because it's an interesting. Am I a pure man or am I a man of pure action? It's true that I love action. It's true, and and it shows. I talk a lot. And I like to generally contribute, but what is less known to a lot of people is that I actually spend a lot of time in reflection as well. It's just much less visible because I speak up so early and a lot, but the basis of my action really is reflection. I think that action without reflection really doesn't do very much good, and it can actually even harm. It's something that I learned as a doctor. You really have to first think before you act, even though you need to act. I mean, I worked on the intensive care and on the emergency care. If you don't act, bad things happen, but also if you act without thinking, worse things happen. With regards to the motivation, that also came from reflection, because it is well known that when you step out, when you take some distance, literally distance, a lot of things become more clear. You can be living on a mountain your whole life. It's only when you actually go to the valley and take some distance, you will see what the mountain is like that you're living on. And many of us are actually on a mountain, which is their career or the ambition of their company. And as they say, distance created clarity. But it's difficult to come off the mountain. So it was great to come off the mountain. I was really on a great mountain called UCB. We were very high up. We had done great things. But the problem when you're on the mountain is you can only see what is right in front of you. And those who've ever walked in the mountains will know that you always think that after the next bend will be something different, but there's just the next bend after the next bend. And so it takes distance. And as I took distance, I saw a few things that became very, very clear to me. And I thought, wow, if only industry could do this better, I think it would make a huge difference. And you can compare that to looking at a big mountain and saying, oh, wait a minute, there's another route to the top. Everybody's climbing on this place. But if you go that way, it may look like a little detour, but look, then it's straight up. And so I got some of these insights when I was away. But then, of course, it's a little bit like the difference between the football players and the people who are cheering for them. As they always say, the best footballer players are always sitting on the side of the field because they know how to do it best. But, if you really want to play the game, you're going to have to get off your bum and do it. So once I got these insights, I could not stay passive. And I said, look, the next time that I have an opportunity to actually practice some of these things that I understood, then I really want to do it. And I'll just give you one of the things that I understood by looking at the distance. I realized for the first time probably how deeply interconnected employee engagement is to patient engagement. What that means is that you can never win in patient engagement unless you first win internally. Now, that doesn't look like it's very new or very different. I mean, Richard Branson is known to have said, take care of your employees because then they will take care of your customers. So there are some businessmen that have said this, but never in pharma. And in pharma, we have kind of overreacted at some point that everything became out about the patient, even at the expense of our employees. And too much lip service to the employees saying you are the most important asset, but really that's not what is usually practiced. And so that was, I said, if I want to work again, I want to work at a company that really puts their employees at a very central place in the whole process. So that's why I took a sabbatical, and it's also why I came back. I don't know how. I wanted to go back and see if it works, and I am now even more convinced that it works.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring. Next question: how leaders properly contribute to employees, the company, and other stakeholders?
I'll try to be more brief this time. I think the shortest answer would be you have to understand as a leader that you cannot ignore any of these, right? You said employees, company, and stakeholders. And as a leader, you have to make sure that you engage with all three of them. And in fact, you could say that, in fact, the employees and the company is just another stakeholders. So as a leader, you really have to do a 360. You are not just leading the people who report to you. You're also leading your peers in roles next to you. You're leading your management because they depend on what you tell them for guidance and for decision making. And you lead the outside world, and you lead your customers. So it's really about taking care of everybody, including employees, which, as I said before, is being ignored quite a lot. So for me, that's the shortest answer. And the second element that I could add would be growth. It's good to engage with them, but the value that you can give to your employees, to your companies, and your stakeholders is growth. And I'm not talking about financial growth or financial growth only. For your employees, it could be personal growth, right? For your company, it probably will be business growth, however your company defines that. And for your stakeholders, it will be value growth, right? So they're different things. So I think that's really the two points that I would like to say.
Different things, but they're always interconnected, right?
Absolutely, and it's very, very dangerous to generalize, to treat your employees like your customers like your employees, your company like your customers. You really have to, there's not a one solution fits all. We know that, but we continue to try and try and see if it still works.
So what are then the key attributes of a successful leader, in your opinion?
Well, I don't want to claim that I have a lot of experience with that concept of the pure leader that you said at the beginning. Successful leaders, it's quite interesting. They have some. They first of all, they care a lot, and they care more, if not as much, about their people and about the people they serve than about the numbers and the business. So I think it really starts from that care. And then, I mean, there are so many books written over that. And I honestly, to answer the second part of your question, I am not so sure that a lot has changed over the last years, except very recently, where, you know, as a leader, you have to be much more open to new things, to risk taking. We have to kind of, the things we learned at business school about how to plan, you know, the classics. We don't know when the confinement will stop in our own country, whether it's going to be 2 weeks, 2 months. We don't know that. So how can we even dream of doing a 5-year plan? We have to do scenario planning, knowing very well that a lot of scenarios will not happen, right? And that means allowing for much more uncertainty. That is probably the one new thing that the leaders have to do. And for the rest, it's all the values that we've always had. But allowing uncertainty at the same time as making your people feel safe, I think that really makes the difference.
Thank you very much. You mentioned previously centricity, which is definitely one very important aspect. And if you ask me, I think that we can speak today about different stakeholder centricity, from patient centricity, customer centricity, people centricity, etc. But why is this centricity so important? And unfortunately, why still Pharma don't understand this in the proper way?
Well, I'll share you a little personal story. In 1991, I went to a congress in America, a medical congress, which was in San Francisco, and I had never been in San Francisco. And for one night, we went out to a very famous Chinese restaurant, and I got a fortune cookie. In the village where I came from, we did not have a lot of Chinese restaurants. So for me, it was the first time I had a fortune cookie. And so they told me, look, there's a message inside, and we believe that there's no chance that this cookie comes to you because the message will be specially relevant to you. And so when I opened my cookie, the text said, you can pay people to work for you. But if you want them to work with you, then you will need to win their heart. And I was really touched by that wisdom, really deeply touched. Because it made it very clear the difference between working for when you pay them fairly and really partnering with. The word with came. And so that became a leading motto for me in my further career. And honestly, I still have that little cookie paper. So there are many variations of this old wisdom which keeps being rediscovered. I mean, I don't know, no matter what religion you are, most religious books will always talking about treating the others like you want to be treated, right? And in a sense, I think all of this people centricity is just a variation of that central theme. But I would say it's not just treating other people like you want to be treated. It's going the ultimate step of treating other people like they want to be treated. Right? So there's really 3 levels. I treat you like I want to treat you. That's the lowest level. I treat you like I would like to be treated. That would already be a huge improvement in medicine. And we know that when doctors become patients, they learn a lot. But the next step, the ultimate step is I want to treat you like you want to be treated. And so I think that's why I think in the end, it always comes down to that.
Exactly, yeah. This leads me to the next question, which is, I think, quite challenging to answer. And this is that we all agree that this centricity is very crucial, but in many cases, people think that this is strategy related, while I personally think it's completely culture related. So
yes, I agree.
How to embed this in the culture? So that's, I think, the $1 million question.
Well, you first have to realize that it's all about culture. Right. I don't know who said it anymore, but it was a very famous business person who said culture has strategy for breakfast or something like that, or strategy has planning for breakfast. But it really is about culture. Culture is your strongest asset if done well, but it can also be your strongest hurdle. Right. And I think there are several challenges that you need to overcome as a leader to change that. First of all, the awareness, like we talked, but then the second one is to understand without judging the fact that humans resist change. It's simple because change is unpredictable, and unpredictability means fear. So the resistance that most employees have to new plans of new ways is not based on laziness. Laziness is a judgment call that actually makes them their adversary to you. But it's actually on fear. And I remember having this discussion with one of my previous CEO, and because he was and still is, such a fearless man, he could simply not understand how somebody could be afraid. But you only had to be in a meeting where he showed up to see physically how people were afraid, because he was such a clever man making very pointed comments, and people were afraid to be exposed. Right? In the end, it's fear of not being liked or not being loved. It's very rudimentary, and so that is why creating trust is so very important. Right? Once you are aware that the culture is it, the one thing you have to really discover, expose, and grow is the trust. The trust between management and the employees, but also between employees. Right? Good leaders, and we know that there's more and more research, create a safe environment. Right? And that means that it's safe to say what you want. It's safe to think differently. It's even safe to not reach your goal as long as you've tried and you've been ambitious and you learn from it. But let's face it, in most organizations, not just Pharma, but in most organizations, it's not safe to do these things. Right? It's the same thing for giving feedback. It's not safe to give feedback. Right? So you avoid failure. And if your philosophy in your career becomes avoiding failure, you avoid risk, you avoid feedback, and you avoid initiative. That basically means no growth. and no performance. So that's why after awareness, trust is really number two. Number three is that and this is really an issue of medicine and pharma because they're so closely linked, and it's how I've been educated, and it took me years to understand it. We still live in the paradigm that knowledge leads to action. If only we make people understand something, they will do what we want. Put differently, if a patient is non-compliant, we need to educate them. If a doctor doesn't prescribe our drug, we need to educate them, because behind it is the idea, education leads to knowledge. Knowledge means they will do what I think they need to do. That's a huge issue, because the science, if we want to be scientific, points exactly the other way. You ask people in the street, everybody knows that smoking is bad, that drinking and driving is bad, that speeding is bad, yet significant percentage of the population do it. It's the strongest proof that's been there for decades that knowledge by itself does not lead to action. Yet we continue to be stuck in this dogma and invest millions and millions in education of all our customers. And let's face it, with very low impact, right? And the reason is very simple. The dogma is wrong. And so accepting that behavior is not driven by knowledge in the first place is really the third big challenge, because it's the same with your employees, right? Behavior is not driven by them understanding why it's important to do that. You need to also engage them, capture the emotion, the motivation. The whole new science of behavioral economics will hopefully soon invade pharma, as it has done in other parts. And last but not least, and I'll stop there, the fourth one, because it should stop actually at 3, but 4, is purpose. We know that purpose is one of the 3 elements that leads to motivation of employees, of customers. So purpose is for a leader very, very important. And all of those link back to what you said. Those are the key elements of what is and drives culture. And just to be clear what culture is the total of how people think, what they value, and how they behave. So it's all 3. And it's passed on to the next comers. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, even more. We learned really a lot. Very, very nice, Lode. Let's move forward to the next question block, which are the quick fire questions. And here we just need a short answer so that we keep it very inspiring. And the first question is your favorite trip ever.
Favorite trip ever, I think my honeymoon. It was to Southern Africa. We did the Kruger Park, Cape Town, the Okavango Delta, and the Victoria Waterfalls, and remains favorite forever.
Very interesting. How many days?
We actually went for 3 weeks.
Oh, that's a nice one. Biggest regret, if any?
Yeah, I waited very long to marry, so it was worth it.
Next question, biggest regret, if any, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not usually spending a lot of time, but this question that you asked me forced me to think. And I think my biggest regret is that I probably started a bit too late to appreciate myself. That sounds stupid, but in fact, you cannot really love others when you don't really love yourself. And I have a chronic condition which is called perfectionism. And that means that you are very hard on yourself, as you are also on others. And it's only when I start to appreciate that I'm okay as I am and worthwhile as I am, that I could ease on that and then also ease on the others. So I won on both sides. And I wish that this insight had come earlier.
So it was a win-win. Next question, yes. Technology or people?
Well, you have the answer. I mean, it's all about people.
Okay, good one. Best Belgian chocolate?
That is a politically charged question, but I would say Callebaut. Yeah, it's not so well known because they don't make the tourist chocolates, but in terms of the quality and the variability, the consistency, but also the choice of chocolate, they're my favorite.
Mine is Pierre Marcolini, if you wonder, so just for
yeah, but that's the name, that's perfect marketing.
It is, yeah, indeed. Favorite book author?
I'm not usually led by the author to decide about a book. However, I will confess that I have read the 3 books recently of Yuval Noah Harari, so Homo Sapiens, and it was the first time that I really took one book led by the author. I usually do books and summaries that have a lot to do with self-management, leadership, and growth. And in vacation, I read just crap fiction novels. So I don't have really a big favorite author.
So Harari is really brilliant. I like him a
Ah,
lot as well. So then my recommendation would also be Nassim Taleb, who is quite similar in thinking.
thank you, thank you.
Okay. Proudest moment in your life?
For me, it's achievement of others around me. Recently, I give an example. My son had for the first time a song that he wrote on radio and on national radio in Belgium, and I was really crying with pride. So whenever somebody of my family or my current or even previous team members achieve something, or my peers, it really fills me. But there's not one that sticks out like, woo, no.
Maybe we can put that sound in the background of that interview. Would be nice. 3 greatest career achievements or one?
I think changing medicine in rheumatology by a study that we truly designed with the practitioners and that really listened to patient needs years ago. It really led to a change in how rheumatology was practiced. In the old days, it was go slow, go low. And now it became like treat to target, which was entirely unknown. So that is something that I think was a great achievement because this came out of a pharma company originally as an ID, and it changed medical practice. So that's good. Another one would be related to patients. We had a crisis with one of our products, manufacturing issue, but we were able, with good collaboration with the physicians, the patients, and the regulators, to keep 85% of patients on nominated supply for more than a year and a half until we fixed the production issue, and more than 85% stayed on it because they got so much value from that. And my third one would be, for those who know that I've done a few TED Talks, I think that I've been able to break the taboos around medication use during pregnancy, at least contribute to that. And the TED Talks were great for that. So that today, women who are pregnant are no longer denied of medication they need, although we now see with Corona, sadly, history repeating. And conversely, when chronic patients become ill, they can continue the medication in many cases that they so need just to be okay.
Thank you, Lode. It was very inspiring for us, and all the best. Take very good care and rest yourself in this very beautiful period. So thank you very much. I really learned a lot.
Thank you very much.
3 is the industry standard virtual engagement platform for pharmaceutical and medical device teams. Meaningful engagement, more effective discussions, faster decisions. Within 3.